is occupied by two types of people, introverts and extroverts. Though people's personalities range across the spectrum, everyone you meet will probably trend towards one or the other. I have witnessed firsthand the difficulties and struggles that these two groups of people have when interacting with each other due to the differences in how they operate on a fundamental level. How should introverts tackle the intricacy of leadership in a Western world that is built to accommodate and favor extroverts? When discussing introversion and extroversion, these terms' definitions are often confused. During my research on this topic, I had the opportunity to interview Mr. Mark McLean, a licensed professional counselor and supervisor. He stated that the biggest myth about introverts is that they don't like people, that they're not good with people, and that they have poor or undeveloped social skills. He continued by saying that the stereotype of introverts is not true at all, and introversion and extroversion are more about energy and recharging than it is about your love or desire to be with people. In simple terms, introversion and extroversion can be defined as an excess or deficiency in energy when around a group of people. A psychologist named Carl Jung popularized these terms, being one of the many reasons why they're used so constantly to describe people. These definitions are often confused because introversion can express itself in people who may have poor undeveloped social skills, and this significantly alters the way many people view the word introvert. Introversion and extroversion are characteristics that we are born with and have hardwired into our system. Experiences can affect how these two categories manifest in someone's life, though they can rarely override that part of their personality. It can be challenging for these two groups of people to closely interact because of how differently they manage and handle situations. Both types of people see the world through different lenses which color every interaction they have with other people. One of the many reasons that it can be so difficult working close together is because of how different we think and strategize. In her book, The Introverted Leader, CEO of Campbell Soup Company, Jennifer B. Kahnweiler studies workspaces with both groupings of people and studies how extroverts and introverts manage and process situations. Being an extrovert, she provides insight onto how extroverts think and strategize while also understanding where introverts come from. She states that introverts want time to prepare, quiet periods during the day, privacy, and a slower pace. Extroverts need chances to talk it out, including drop-in social time. Extroverts receive vigor and energy from being around a large group of people and feel drained or depleted when alone or in smaller groups. Introverts act on a contradictory level entirely. We receive energy and vigor from being alone or in small groups, and we often feel depleted or drained when in large groups of people. Others often conclude that because introverts often seem tired or bored around people, that we don't like people or that we don't enjoy being around people. And this is often because we need time to recharge and revitalize. People easily and often overlook introverts because of our quiet nature and our companions' more visible and extroverted personalities. Now that the difference between these two terms has been clarified, it's essential to recognize how each archetype acts cognitively to understand how to collaborate more effectively. Now, there is nothing wrong with expressing your thoughts loudly or socializing often, but it puts introverts in a place where they feel the only way to be heard or the only way to be seen is through becoming something that they're not. Extroverts have often expressed to me that they find it difficult to closely interact because introverts do not match them socially, and this is often because introverts provide a different amount of energy, volume, force, and length to a conversation. Introverts desire to be and perform with the highest function in small groups rather than large groups because it relieves some of the tension that increases social pressure in large groups of people. From my own experiences, I have found that extroverts have the natural talent of adjusting socially and making others feel comfortable. And it's often because this talent comes so easily to extroverts that it convinces introverts that they are not built to be social and do not have the skills to do so. This is the exact train of thought that most introverts have on a daily basis, and it's extremely dangerous because it leads to paths of self-loathing and self-doubt. This self-doubt is one of the many reasons why introverts are overlooked for leading roles. The social comparison of these two categories occurs more often than we think, impacting extroverts and introverts alike. And it's so important that this does not happen because one of the crucial aspects of social interaction is confidence. a lack of self-esteem or confidence is one of the many reasons introverts struggle to communicate to other people. The lack of confidence experienced by introverts does not happen in this group exclusively and is often overlooked in extroverts. But one of the overarching reasons for this problem is the comparison to extroverts that introverts fabricate. Comparison can be a great motivator and catalyst for change so long as it's healthy. Philippians 3:17 is a great example of how this can be used to your advantage. It states, "Brothers and sisters, join in imitating me and observe those who live according to the example you have in us." A desire to imitate others who are doing good is a great way to do something that is moral. There's a very fine line, however, that if crossed can become very problematic. If this desire twists into an unhealthy craving that cannot be satisfied, it turns into an obsession that is incredibly hard to overcome. The Weight of Glory by C.S. Lewis emphasizes this when it says, "Of all passions, the passion for the inner ring is the most skillful in making not yet a very bad man do very bad things." Our Human Society and Literature class discussed how the desire for this inner ring can cause us to yearn for the wrong things. The inner ring in this book describes a group of people that come together and exclude others based on the same reason they come together. A great example of this would be the popular kids in high school that you see in all of the movies. The temptation to change so that a group may include you is highly enticing. In fact, the American Bar Association recognized this in the legal profession and even spotlighted the correlation of well-being and self-esteem. 85% of the world has fallen prey to this temptation and way of thinking and suffered from problems of self-esteem and confidence. If I were to bet, everyone in this room has probably compared themselves to someone else and changed based on that comparison. This obstacle is one of the many that can root itself so deep and ultimately influence how you operate for the rest of your life. Just as pride is considered the root of all sin, the opposite is just as effective, as in having no self-worth or self-respect. Self-loathing is such a great struggle for introverts because we are often categorized or stereotyped as being boring, socially awkward, and not attractive. Our comparison to extroverts causes self-doubt, which in turn creates these same assumptions made by other people. This enigma is difficult to escape because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that if we don't make a concerted effort to do something about it and change, then it will continue to happen. The yearning to compare begins when we see someone have something that we don't. Introverts often start to compare when we see how outgoing and friendly an extrovert can be and realize the struggle it takes for ourselves to be able to do the same thing. Jennifer B. Conlauer states, "While introverts increasingly recognize and own their strengths, it's hard to push through the deep-rooted, often subtle bias that caters to extroverts' preferences." During my interview with Mr. Mark McQueen, he also stated that for all of us, it's one of our key spiritual battles. Getting comfortable with who I am and seeing the gifting of it. Introverts possess incredible gifts like extroverts, but accepting them and not desiring for someone else's is the tricky part. One of the main qualities that an introvert envies is the appearance of assertiveness and confidence that an extrovert displays. Jennifer B. Conlauer explains very clearly what most people view a leader as. She states that the traditional view of a leader is that they speak confidently and assertively and they clamor to be the center of attention. Now, this sentence does seem extreme, but in reality, I think this is what most people view a leader as, and I think we can clearly see this in all of our lives. Even in childhood, we see that the leadership roles are given to those who have more extroverted personalities. And because starts at such a young age, it's incredibly difficult to remove this unfair stigma against introverts. Because introverts do not naturally possess these skills or don't utilize them efficiently, we assume that we cannot and that we should not be leaders. The definition of a leader is often confused with superiority and dictatorship. However, the idea of leadership is not one of praise and glory, but of servitude and of respect. Matthew 20:26 through 28 clearly states what a leader is supposed to be when it says, "It shall not be so among you. Whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever must be first among you must be your slave. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, to give his life as a ransom for many." Leadership is meant to be a role of servitude and sacrifice, leading and guiding those who are listening to you. It's the confusion of this role that often convinces introverts that they do not have the skills to fulfill this role. The main thoughts that result from this envy or self-doubt is that we must convert ourselves or transform ourselves into an extrovert to fulfill it. This mindset completely contradicts what God continually tells us in the Bible. He continues to tell us that we're fearfully and wonderfully made by Him, and He doesn't desire us to change. Kamala says this very well when she says that this process is not about trying to turn yourself into an extrovert or trying to beat them at their own game, but it's about enhancing your people skills and talents to become the leader you are meant to be. Leadership is not accomplished through just one certain path and can have the same effect when using a different method, which is why God gives us different talents. He doesn't desire us to do the exact same job the exact same way. It often seems this way because the leaders that we see at places like church, social media, and at school are people you consider to be extroverts. Stereotypes and standards are what most people look at and base their decisions on, because Western society tells us it's preferred to do so. We see this in beauty standards and in clothing. People change the way that they look and the way that they act so they'll be more valuable or more likable. I've had periods in my own life where I've done the exact same thing, and in doing so I absolutely disregarded what God created me to be and created me to do. We are somehow easily convinced that the values and standards placed here on earth are more valuable than what God deems so. Letting ourselves be manipulated and controlled by the standards of the world is what keeps us from fulfilling what God tells us He wants us to do. God has blessed each of us with amazing gifts to accomplish His desired goals, and it's honestly selfish to not want those gifts and to desire someone else's. One of the most influential and famous leaders in the political world was Abraham Lincoln. Although Lincoln didn't have a formal education, wealth, or an esteemed social standing, he used his skills in silent communication and quiet listening to garner respect from others and eventually elevate himself to a position of leadership. Whether in private meetings or in public speeches, Lincoln was profoundly persuasive, not in the manner of a fast-talking extrovert, but by imbuing his every word with a sense that it should be heard. What if Lincoln had listened to the naysayers and believed in the unlikelihood of his success? What if he had been content to live in solitude instead of practicing the areas of leadership he wasn't so good at? It's easy to say that we're thankful for our gifts and will continue to use them instead of burning with the desire to have someone else's. But committing to this mentality is incredibly difficult. The first step to leaving comparison behind is practicing something called gratefulness. Discontentment usually stems from a lack of thankfulness, which is why it's such a large target for temptation. Our attempts to turn into extroverts often fail because we are placing ourselves on a foundation that is fallible. God doesn't ask us to change ourselves to step onto His foundation. All He asks of us is to do His will and to be ourselves. That foundation will stand firm against all that may buffet it. By accepting the way that we are meant to be, magnificently created by God, we can progress through strengthening our own gifts. When I was not immediately good at something, I would quit. This was my answer for leadership as well. I convinced myself that because I was not naturally good at communicating to other people like an extrovert would be, that I could not and that I should not be a leader. After accepting the gifts that were given to me, I realized that my potential is different, but it's equal. After this, I previously sought answers on how to become a better leader, and I received an answer that I absolutely did not want to hear. Everyone says practice makes perfect. Practice at what you want to achieve, and you'll be better at what you want to do. I despise this answer for many reasons, one of them being that it seems like it takes too long, and the other being it seems too simple. However, every successful person that I have talked to has said the exact same thing, and I've recently realized that there's probably a reason for that. Deciding to take part in practicing my talents was one of the best decisions of my life. I had not realized how much practicing I had done without realizing. According to Malcolm Gladwell, a Canadian journalist and author, he says it takes around 10,000 hours, or a little over a year of practice, to become a master in your desired field. I've unknowingly been practicing leadership in my life for around 3 years, and I'm still nowhere near where I want to be. It takes a lot of effort and will to accomplish this, but it's all worth it. Of all that I've stated so far, my most influential advice would be to just try and to practice at what you want to achieve. Practice can be uncomfortable and a lot of the times very embarrassing, but your mistakes are what you learn from and grow from, so don't shy away when they happen. Through self-acceptance, honest reflection, and practice, you can be on your way to transforming to be a great leader. Some people will have an easier time at leadership than you, but don't quit because of it. Everyone is different, and that's a great thing. If everyone was the exact same, the church and the world would not be as it was today. Because of this, we should be genuinely grateful for the gifts that we have, seeking to become better people by training and practicing with them. Leadership is possible by all people who truly seek and desire it, including introverts. Thank you.
All right, good job, Afton.
Thank you.
You did it.
Yep.
So, are you an introvert or extrovert?
I'm an introvert.
That just did a wonderful job standing up there being the leader. So
Thank
you
you.
did wonderful. So, yeah, all right. Well, Afton, it has just been a pleasure. You know, it's just so awesome when I get to start with you in 7th grade and see you grow up, and then you end your senior year with me. So I thank you so very much. And now it's just kind of nice because, like last year, I had to share. I worried about Lane Kelly being blown away, being so small. I've worried about you too. I'm like, man, this girl's weighted down with this backpack, but still not going to keep her safe. So you don't know. I have behind the scenes checking on you, make sure you're okay. And so I think you've grown a few inches. I don't know. I don't think you've gained any pounds, but anyway, so I may have to come to love it and just make sure you're not blown away because the wind does blow a little bit more up there, okay? So anyway, you have just been a treasure. So let's, introverts, extroverts. So at this table, how many introverts do you think we have?
I feel like you're an introvert, but I feel like y'all are both extroverts. If I had to guess.
Would you go there?
You're an introvert? Oh.
I don't know what I am. One day, one thing, one another. All right, so let's get down to business. All right, Grelly. Okay, so why do we generally think the world favors extroverts?
Well, I think we can clearly see this in all areas of our life, one of them being school. I think MCA does a great job with our community, but I think in other places, extroverts are favored by teachers and staff, and I think you can see like the popular kids are more extroverted personalities, and I think the weird kids that you see in the movies are always going to be introverts. I think another area is social media. I think all the influencers that we see on social media are people you would consider extroverts, and because that's promoted all the time, I think it sometimes causes a little bit of envy or jealousy for introverts. And then I think another area for Christians is at church. I think all the leaders that we see are extroverts, and I think the same leaders are used continually. And I think introverts at church are given more like administrative roles, like office work or teaching little kids. And so I think those are some areas of our life that extroverts are more favored than introverts.
Okay, and I can see that. I agree with you a little bit on that one. Okay, so in that, so here at MCA through the Socratic and teaching method, we have to give a contribution grade, and you've had to give contribution grades too. So how are we trying to get every student just to be the extrovert, making sure that they do contribute to the class?
No, that's what I thought when I first came up to the upper school, and I despised it because I hated talking. And so, but I've realized that it's not about that. It's about actually having a conversation with people, and people want to hear your thoughts and opinions on different things. And so, no, I don't think it's trying to do that at all.
So how did you overcome? Because you were very quiet. And so how'd you overcome that?
Practice.
Okay.
Just doing it over and over again and getting out of my comfort zone definitely helped. I hated it at first, but it has definitely helped me in the long run. So.
Okay, okay. And I know I had you in fine arts, and we kind of stretched that comfort zone.
Yeah.
How'd you stretch it there?
Well, there are a lot of things that I had to do in front of people that I didn't want to do, and that definitely helped me like get out of my comfort zone a lot. And I didn't like it then, but I appreciate it now.
And so, happy to give the senior thesis. Did you go into that with a little bit better attitude?
Yes,
Okay.
I did. I feel like I have the ability to stand in front of people a lot easier than I did. Rhetoric helped me a lot with that as well. Just being confident in what I'm saying and being able to do that without being like super nervous. So.
Okay. So in this, yeah, you talk about how introverts and extroverts, that if they're in a group, it's hard for them to communicate. So now I'm considering, because I'm married to an introvert, a very introverted person. So how have we lasted 41 years?
Well, I think the key is understanding where someone is coming from, seeing their perspective. So my mom actually showed me this example. I'll have an example. So like this paper, you see this side of this paper, I see this side, and then you see this side. And if we don't go around and move around the table, then we're never going to know what they see. And so I think understanding what someone thinks and feels is very important to have a good relationship and communicate. I mean, that's what a lot of the other orals were about too, is you have to understand where they're coming from, or else you're not going to be able to grow with that other person.
Okay, very nice. Because I know he is he's introverted, but yet he's so strong. I mean, he's over a multi-million-dollar company. He handles all these types of problems and everything. So a lot of people do not see him as an introvert. But he is happy if we go to a gathering. He can be happy sitting in the chair, and I work the room, and he's okay. He's like, he's spending all that energy, and I'm just sitting here. And then he'll find that little other introvert, and they'll get on a topic, and they just go with it, you know? And I'm like, well, and someone else that likes to talk politics, I don't. So, okay. So, anyway, all right, super. Well, okay, I'll go for another 50 years with him, okay? All right. What qualities do introverts have that extroverts might not have that help them be successful in their jobs, leadership?
That extroverts have that introverts don't?
That introverts have that extroverts do not have.
Well, I think we're really good at having deep conversations with one-on-one with people. And I think we put a lot of energy and thought and intent in what we're saying. And so I think it's easier for us to be able to have closer relations to people rather than an extrovert, because I feel extroverts have the talent of doing that with a lot of people, but maybe struggle with finding close connections with people because of that talent. And so I feel like that's something that introverts have.
Do you think an extrovert ever struggles with anything?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like what?
An extrovert?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think they struggle with like self-reflection and being alone because they are always on the go with other people and always want to be around people. I think it's hard to be by themselves and to focus on themselves.
So do you think people can be a little bit of both?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how's that?
Yeah. Well, I think I've definitely met extroverts who are really shy and do get energy from being around people, but don't necessarily want to all the time. And I've found introverts who can be very talkative, but they can't be around people for a very long time. because that's not how they were built. And I think there's also people who get energy from being with people and being alone. They're kind of the golden mean of those. And so, yes, there are definitely people like that.
Very nice. Okay.
All right, Afton. First of all, I love your name. I'm just wondering, do you know the meaning of it? Where did it come from?
Well,
Is it a family name?
My parents found this song named Sweet Afton. It's about a river or something. But yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Y'all have great names. Yeah. Very cool. Well, I kind of want to pick up on what you mentioned about Abraham Lincoln, because it's so inspiring. Quick question, and I think we all know this, and some of this may have actually been mentioned when y'all were on your American history trip, but what is his most famous speech?
Gettysburg Address.
Very good, very good. And do you know how many words, if you were going to take a guess, how many words were in that speech?
Award.
I'll give you a quote. This is something that he wrote to Abraham Lincoln after the speech. He said, "I wish that I could flatter myself that I had come as near to the central idea of the occasion in 2 hours as you did in 2 minutes." And I'm just going to get your thoughts on this, but it seems to me that sometimes introverts are maybe what you might call, for such a time as this, leaders, that maybe not over the course of a lifetime are they leading actively, but there's a moment where they kind of rise to the occasion. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think because extroverts are kind of the main leaders, having an introvert is kind of something special and unique. And I think introverts have a talent of communicating quietly but with power and intent. And so, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, you mentioned that in talking about him that he seemed to imbue his words with kind of urgency and necessity, and people listened to him when he spoke. Maybe he didn't speak a whole lot in those private meetings, but when he did, yeah, they listened. Okay, very good. Okay, you also mentioned that you don't want to be, basically, I'm paraphrasing, but, a square peg trying to fit into a round hole, right? You don't want to try to become an extrovert and be something that you are not. But I also read in the source that you used for this extroverted leaders, with Abraham Lincoln, there was one other person that it's basically Army Brigadier General Heidi Brown, and she's the first woman to lead a brigade into combat. And I just want to get your idea about something she says about herself and her approach to warfare. She basically said she thinks about Wonder Woman, who's a superhero who adopts a forceful, larger-than-life persona to accomplish her goals, only to withdraw from the public eye the moment her mission ends. So I guess are superheroes introverts, or is there a way that you could maybe visualize yourself in that idea? I don't know.
I think it makes sense, giving all your energy for one thing and then needing to recharge and revitalize by going away. So yeah. I think that makes total sense.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Let me see here. Okay, so one of the things that I really appreciated that you put in your thesis is that you would easily give up on things that you were not naturally talented in. I think, are you 17?
I'm 18.
You're 18, okay. To be 18 and already recognize that is a wonderful thing. So whatever struggles you had to go through to get to that point, that's some wisdom right there. And another thing that you mentioned, let me just see, along those lines, people say that practice makes you better at what you want to accomplish, and you said, I despise this answer for many reasons. One being it takes too long, it seems too simple. However, every successful person that I've come in contact with has told me the same message. So again, a lot of wisdom there to recognize that when you're hearing the same message over and over again, pay attention to it. So I just want to commend you for that and for your transparency on that. What are some of the things that you're doing to practice communication, social skills, leadership, as an introvert?
Well, I recently have been trying to get out of my comfort zone and talk to people that I don't know so well, which is not always fun, but it helps a lot. Standing up in front of people, teaching, I wanted to be able to do that even though I knew I wasn't the most comfortable in doing so, that it would definitely benefit me in the long run, and so those are a few ways that I've been trying to do it.
All right, that's awesome. What do you think are some of the most common misconceptions, like maybe just from a personality standpoint, that people might have about introverts? I don't know if that's clear or not.
Yeah. I talked about it a tiny bit in my speech, but a lot of people see introverts as boring, weird, awkward. That's kind of the main stereotypes that are around introverts. So.
Okay. Is it possible that standoffish, aloof, or arrogant might be one of those as well? How so?
For introverts?
Yes.
Yeah, I think a lot of people categorize them as being like know-it-alls, like super smart, and they brag about it. And so I definitely think that's another version of the stereotype that's for introverts.
Okay. I agree. And in learning to communicate with people better, is there actually a way that it might, how do I phrase this, be able to almost help you to be understood better and maybe protect your boundaries as an introvert, if that makes sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely think that by learning that talent, that you can express your thoughts and your own opinions and feelings and have more people understand, because I definitely think that's something, that's one of the reasons why there's so many stereotypes and standards of introverts, is because they don't actually communicate those things to other people. So.
Yeah, that was one of the interesting little things I read too, that when you communicate more with people, you're able to, they know that you like them, that you do enjoy being around them, and whenever you do need to put up a boundary of, I need some of my alone time, they're way more willing to give it to you because they understand. They understand that it's not them that you're projecting, I guess, if that makes sense. So that was pretty cool. All right, I'll pass it on.
Well done, Afton.
Thank you.
So I kind of want to go back to the idea that you have talked about, that the world and society generally favors and accommodates extroverts more than introverts. Do you think that society should change and adjust to accommodate introverts more, or do you think introverts should just learn it individually?
So I think in both ways. So I think this is society needs to do the work, and I think introverts as well, because I don't think you can put all of that on just one certain group, and so I think both areas need to be able to do that.
So what can, like an extrovert listening to this, what's something practical they can do to work towards that?
Well, I think just listen is something that's great, because in doing so you can understand where an introvert is coming from. And what an introvert needs to do on the other side is to be able to speak up and voice their opinion. So,
I agree with that. Changing courses a bit. Do you think that Jesus was an introvert or an extrovert?
that's hard. I don't know. What immediately comes to mind is, so when he was healing all of those people and he had to take a break from it, that's probably physically tired, but you could also interpret that as being, he's tired from being around a lot of people and needs a break. But he also has a lot of extroverted traits, I think, as well. He was a teacher and he went around and taught people, and so I'm not really really sure. It's a hard question.
Yeah, but it is hard. I don't know the answer. I don't know if any of us know the answer. Can you think of any other, anyone else from the Bible who you kind of view as an introverted leader?
So I think it's kind of hard to see that, but I think Moses might be a good one. I mean, God told him, like, oh, you need to go out there and say these things to people, and he absolutely didn't want to. And I think he was the one that had like a stutter or something where he couldn't speak correctly, and he was afraid. And I think I just saw a few introverted traits about him, and so I don't know. I would say Moses maybe.
I think that's a great example. Can you share, so you talked about the Philippians 3:17 verse about imitating and how that can be a good motivator for change when it's healthy. Who's an example from your personal life who you view as an introverted leader and you want to try to imitate some of their traits in that?
I would say maybe my grandpa, Calm Poppy. I think he's a great introverted leader. He sacrifices and serves his family very well. And I think he has this nature about him where he gives respect to other people, and people automatically respect him too. And so that's something I really value.
That's awesome. Way to go, Grandpa. Why do you think it's important to have introverts in leadership roles? Why should we not just be like, okay, we'll let the extroverts do it? What's the value in having introverts be leaders?
Well, one of the reasons is I think everyone's called to be a leader. I've got a verse actually. Matthew 20:26-28. That's the verse about whoever's going to be first among you must be your servant, and above you must be your slave. And then there's another verse, 1 Peter 4:10, which says each one should use whatever gift he has received to serve others, faithfully administering God's grace in its various forms. And so that makes it seem like everyone should be serving others, and in doing so, that's kind of a leadership role. And so it's like, I think it's very important that all people, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, should be doing that. So,
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it, that it's obedient to what God's called us to. When introverts are in leadership roles, what values can they bring to that might be unique to their personalities?
well, I think introverts are very good with relationships and having deep conversations. Extroverts are better at talking to large groups of people and relaying a message that way, and I think introverts have the talent of leading in smaller ways with smaller groups of people. I think definitely introverts can do large groups and extroverts smaller groups, but I feel the majority of introverts are able to do that very well, and so I think that's something that's very valuable in introverted leaders.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think, like, you might agree with this, as an introvert myself, it's valuable to see other introverts in leadership roles and know, okay, like, I could do that too. If they're capable of that, then I could also do that. Okay, last thing before I hand it back to Mrs. Shelburne. How do you think these ideas and things you've learned in this process will influence you in your next season of life, going off to a new place and being with new people?
So since I'm not going to really know anyone at the place I'm going, I think it's very valuable, especially in my communication skills, being able to go out and seek new people and lead other people who I may not know as well. And so that's what I would say.
Excellent. Thank you, Afton.
All right, so Afton, where are you going next year?
I'm going to Lubbock Christian University, and I will be studying nursing.
You'll make a very nice nurse. I might even let you take care of me in old age. Well, Afton, when I was reading your oral and we've been talking about it, Aesop's fable always comes the tortoise and the hare. And I always think introvert, extrovert, that little tortoise, he just keeps going slow and steady. And then these extroverts, little hares, going everywhere, get distracted, taking a little snooze, and whatever. And, in real life, when you're going down that road, I see very few turtles in the middle of the road. But I see a lot of hares in the middle of the road, okay? So just keep being that turtle and just make it across. And I do know that if you're in the road and you need to be rescued, Connor Bitten will come and rescue you. She's saving lives, getting those turtles out of the way. So anyway, so I always like to end just a little bit before I give you the mic with a little thinking deep thoughts, okay? So introvert or extrovert, it's easy to put people in introverts, extrovert, okay? So let's just kind of have a little fun. Let's think, can you think of a fruit that you would consider that would be an introvert?
Let's see. I think a pear.
Oh, that's good. Why? Why a pear?
I don't know. Just the shape.
Okay, so we know what two introverts look like, a pear. What vegetable would you consider an extrovert?
It's hard. A potato's not a vegetable, is it?
We'll let it be whatever you want.
I say potato.
Okay, it's your day. Potato, okay? All right. Got eyes everywhere looking, okay? What animal would you think that would be an introvert?
A cat.
A cat. Oh, an introvert.
Yep. And I've got a lot of cats.
Yes, you have. You have.
Oh, a lot.
A lot. Okay.
Yep.
So if you had to think of an object that would be an extrovert, what would be an object?
An object. Maybe like trying to look around. Objects. A table.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right. Well, yeah, I think so. Yeah. So okay. So Mr. Tongue has nothing on you. Now you've gone beyond people, and you've got extroverts and introverts taken care of. Okay. So it is time for you to ask us some questions.
Okay. So I have one question for all of you. So I was going to ask you if you're an introvert or extrovert. That's part of the question. So I guess just say it in case people didn't hear. And then the second part of it is, who's a leader that has, that's the opposite archetype or personality type than you? And what is something that you've learned and applied to your life? Does that make sense?
You said the opposite of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
Did you not get the memo easy question?
So I'm an introvert, and I think there's a lot of examples of extroverted leaders that I knew working at camps in college. Hard to name one exactly, but I guess for sake of answering the question, I'll name one. My cub leader at Tabor Lori, and from her and a lot of other extroverted leaders at camp, I think I learned just to be less fearful of what people thought of me, and to just not be afraid to be silly in front of people, or to make mistakes in front of people. Not that I'm great at that now, but I've definitely come a long way, because I used to just be, really self-conscious of speaking up in front of people or just seeming silly. So yeah, through her and a lot of other extroverts at camp, I saw that modeled and tried to continue to apply that.
Great answer.
Okay, yes, so introvert. I know it may not appear to be, but that's taking a lot of work, a lot of practice. Ms. Shelburne is the extrovert that I've learned a lot from. We worked together for the past 2 years in fine arts, and one thing that I've noticed is the relationships that she has been able to forge with so many people, and it's because you go after people. You're not afraid of people. I'm not afraid of you, but I just, if there's a tradition that I want to carry on of yours, as we stay here and you go on to the next place in your life, I want to step outside of myself a little bit more. Last year with the juniors, I mean, I was coming from the grammar school, and I was really scared of y'all. Of reaching out. Not that y'all did anything wrong, but that was just one thing that I watched you do very, very well, and I want to be more like that. So.
Extrovert. Guilty. I have tried to be an introvert. I just love introverts because they're just thinkers. And I'm like, I need to think before I speak, and that gets me in trouble. So my introvert would be a teacher that I had, and Miss Womack, and she was so introverted, but she was just so wise. And she just taught me that she could be that quiet teacher that she loved. And I thought, she hates me because I'm loud and everything, and she's always had to get on to me, so she just despises me. But she taught me to take every person as they come and to enjoy their talents, their personality, whether they're quiet, whether they're loud. And so she just ministered to my soul that quietness was okay, that not to be afraid of being quiet, not to be afraid to just sit with that child and not say one word. And that's hard to do, but they don't need my words sometimes. They just need me to sit there with them in the silence. And so it would be Miss Womack. Excuse me.
All right, we'll close in prayer. Father, thank you so much for this past hour or so that we got to spend just hearing so much wisdom and truth from Afton. I thank you for her years at MCA and the ways that she's been able to contribute to this community through being an introverted leader and showing other introverts how that can be done. I pray for her as she goes off into her next season, that you would just continue to guide her steps and give her the boldness to practice being a leader, even when it's uncomfortable. And I pray that she would do that all for your glory. It's in your son's name I pray. Amen.